So it really is to talk about age and children and young people. We're looking at domestic violence and abuse. So Siobhan asked me to come and talk about the work that we've been doing as part of what's called the Empower Kids Project, which many of you may or may know. So I work for Bernardo's. I'm the national coordinator for the Child Domestic Violence and Abuse Project. So I suppose the larger remit of my job is children and domestic violence, but at the core and at the very essence, the aim of the project is increasing the visibility as children for children as victims of domestic violence and abuse in their own right. When we started on this journey a number of years ago, we decided to define what does this look like, what does children's experiences look like. Many definitions out there did not include children. They may have included children as bystanders, they may include them as witnesses, but they were never named as direct victims or as impacted by domestic violence. So we spent a lot of time looking at this, and we are linked to many different networks. We're linked, we have established a community of practice, which many of you may attend and are welcome to attend. And we brought this to community practice, which is a forum of sort of frontline services around Ireland, looking at topics, various topics around domestic violence. So we kind of started to look at what does this mean? What does children's experiences mean? Because everybody could be thinking of something different. And we went along the journey for 2.5 years of coming together to produce a shared understanding of childhood domestic violence and abuse. And I'll show that to you later. Part of defining children's experiences of domestic violence and abuse could not in any way happen in isolation from children and young people themselves. We started then on a journey of children's participation to really look at how can we capture the experience of domestic violence and abuse from a child's point of view. So that was we've been on a 2-year journey with that. The very first year we asked children and young people to define it, and we have come up with a children's definition, which is part of that shared understanding paper, which I'm more than happy to circulate after today. And we produced a short 1-minute video. And then last year, we worked with many more services. So we put out the invite to services around Ireland, and we have 13 services who worked with us. And we engaged 30 children and young people from around Ireland. And the theme last year really was what matters for children and young people who live with domestic violence and abuse. So I'm not going to sit here and talk about what I think the issues for children and young people that live with domestic violence and abuse. I'll present really the work of the children to date. There's many children from young people, I'd say, from Clare and Limerick who've been involved in this. So Valerie Gleeson, the TLC coordinator, engaged children and young people across Limerick and Clare, as did Adapt Limerick. So just find the right presentation here, and I'll start from here. Now, can everybody see that? See that? Is that gone again?
Yep, I can see that. Thank you.
It's not going. Is that working okay? Is it just one slide?
It's it's the slides there, yeah.
Okay. So I'm just going to really start at the UNCRC and looking at childhood domestic violence and abuse from a children's rights perspective. So 2 articles really come to mind when we're like, as Matt, you could touch on many more, but 2 of them which I want to mention here today. So Article 19, which gives every child to be free from violence, including the threat of violence. And Article 12, which gives the right of every child to freely express his or her views in all matters affecting her or him, and to have those views given due weight according to the child's age and maturity. So those, if we look at childhood domestic violence and abuse from a children's rights perspective, children have a right to be heard, to be seen. Children are asking very much to be heard and seen, and considered as victims of domestic violence and abuse in their own right. So what is the Empower Kids project? As I mentioned, there's 14 services from around Ireland. We cover counties from Tipperary, Limerick, Clare, Galway, Mayo, Longford, Louth, Meath, Dublin, and I'm sure I've missed out, and a national organisation, EPIC, as well. So I'm sure I've missed out a couple of counties there. So as I said, 30 children and young people have participated last year, with the further number, maybe up to 10 children the year before as well. So we facilitate the Empower Kids project with these services, and our overall aim is to hear what children and young people are saying about their experiences of domestic violence and abuse, and advise on how we can adapt our responses as a result. I'm just going to move something here. In fact, I probably didn't share sound because I'm going to play a video in a few minutes. Sorry now, guys. This is the technical issue, so I should be well adapted at this stage. So let me look at how we went about doing participation. So when we started looking at this first, we got tied up a lot in ethics and ethics. So when we realized that there's some models out there to support us to hear the voice of children and young people. So we looked at the Lundy model of participation. The Lundy model is the model of choice that's in the national policy. It is also adopted by TUSLA as well. And it focuses on 4 stages. So space, voice, audience, and influence. So that each child, before they were assessed as being physically and emotionally safe at the time of their participation in this project. Each individual agencies engaged children on a one-to-one basis and assessed that physical and emotional safety, and that was prioritized throughout their time. They were given time to give voice and given many methods of way they could contribute their voice as well. We had many materials and engagement tools to support workers who are engaging children and young people to support their voice be heard in the right way, depending on their age and development as well. Audience and influence, well, that's, I suppose, work that's we've been happening here today, and that's been happening over the last number of months. The children and young people in this project have been involved in the children's consultation for the 3rd National Strategy that Valeria mentioned. They've also given submission into the Family Law Reform courts that's happening at the moment. And they're currently working with the NCCA, the National Curriculum, to create a webinar for teachers to explain about how best to support children in the classroom who are living with domestic violence. So we're working hard at the National Project, at the Childhood Domestic Violence Project, on that audience and influence section of the Lundy model. So how did this happen? So the agency collaboration has been the foundation of this project. We had consultations with our Scottish counterparts that have participated in this work over the last 5 years as well. Choose the Lundy model, and we devised a framework for collaboration so that all agencies around the table came around, had the same understanding of what the work was about, how we could best support children, and to support children if any child protection or any emotional concerns were arising as a result of this work. So over the last couple of years, a number of key themes emerged very much throughout the work. Just to go through a couple of them here with you today. A huge theme that was emerging was children want to be seen and heard and have really massive capacity and want to help others. So children, when last year before we were due to launch the work, we asked the children and young people, well, what has this meant to you? What have you enjoyed about being involved in the Our Kids project? And overwhelmingly, they wanted to help other children living with domestic violence and abuse. They wanted to help professionals understand what it is really like for them. We've named them an animation that I'll share with you soon called See Me, Hear Me, Keep Me Safe. And though the title of that really came from all the feedback from the children and young people, the desire to be seen as victims of domestic violence and abuse, to be heard and to be kept safe. The trauma of children and young people that emerges in their that impacts on their day-to-day functioning was outstanding. And that thread, as you will see in the animation, was carried through. We really wanted to highlight and give voice to the children, what they were saying about that impact from the time they got up in the morning till the time they went to bed. The graphics that you'll see in the animation all came from the children themselves as well. In one of the school scenes, the children had said they would like that everybody is blurred and that we can't see their faces. All we can see and think about is mum at home. All we can think about is what's happened at home. And they can't engage in school on the days. So it was just really important for us to highlight. Children have said they felt invisible in their day-to-day lives. And you can see the picture that I'm showing you here now. This was drawn by one of the young people involved in the project, that way that they had to wear a mask with other professionals, with other people, family and friends. And that mask came on and off at different points throughout the day. So children really expressed a desire to be involved in decision making. They wanted information about courts. They wanted information about what's happening next. They wanted information about schools and where they're going. And they wanted not only to be involved in decision making, they understood that they would not be the decision makers ultimately, but that they wanted to be consulted in that process. They felt that they wanted to have a say in access, they wanted to have a say in court matters, and they want to have a say in their schooling, and they want to have a say in all aspects of their lives. So it's not just around, I suppose, one specific part of their lives that we feel they should be heard and seen. They wanted to be involved in decision making all day in everything that affects their day-to-day lives. Huge importance role of the non-offending parent and siblings, and again you'll see that emerging throughout the animation. And a sense of justice and accountability in part of their fathers, in this case their fathers. They wanted their dads to be held accountable for what happened in the violence and the abuse, and that accountability took many forms. It wasn't just that, you know, that the courts heard them or that social workers believed their story or anything. It was that sometimes they wanted their dad to get help. Sometimes they wanted their dad to take responsibility. Sometimes they just wanted it to stop. Sometimes they wanted guards to go talk to their dads as well. So that sense of accountability took many forms for the children and young people. They felt that they get in trouble when they're not behaving well. They get in trouble in school. They get in trouble if I'm not going to direct quote was, we get in trouble for being bad, why don't they? And I hate to say that about children's behaviour being bad, but I suppose that's just a direct quote from the children themselves. So a real sense of justice that this is wrong and that it's not right. If you look at the developmental stages of children and young people, that sense of justice and that looking at that stage of right and wrong really is strong in that school age children. And if from a domestic violence lens, that becomes quite distorted in terms of what's right and wrong, especially through a lens of coercive control. Schools played a huge role in the lives of children. It's no surprise. It came back strongly across all the feedback from children and young people. A small minority of people felt their safety was compromised, but overwhelmingly for children and young people, they were saying children, our schools was a place of safety and a place of respite. And I suppose if we think of COVID over the last number of years and their levels of the amount of time that children were out of schools, that further isolated children and young people and further silenced children and young people over the last number of years and reduced those opportunities for children to seek help and get support. And it's no surprise that both separation, abuse and access featured in the feedback of children and young people. So I'm going to play an animation. I feel I need to give it a little bit of, if you haven't seen it already, many of you may have, maybe just a little bit of a pre-play warning. I'm not sure what guidance I put on this animation if it was going out to, in the movie theatres. I always come back to Katie Lamb's research from Melbourne. One of the quotes from the children and young people said, if my life was a movie, I wouldn't be allowed to see it. You know, and in a way, this animation may be triggering if any of those of you who may have experienced domestic violence abuse from whatever capacity. So just take note that this video may be distressing. Now I need to hide you. Can you tell me if this doesn't, sound doesn't come across? The first couple of slides, sound doesn't come across anyway.
When I'm with Mammy and Aoife, I want to draw a rainbow all around us to keep us happy. But Daddy gets angry. I get scared. I wish he would stop because I don't want anyone to get hit. Aoife tries to protect me, but I wish I was far away from all the fighting and the noise.
But sometimes it's like a deathly silence, and the atmosphere takes over the home and seeps into every pore. I want to protect Sean in a way that I never had been, to take him upstairs, away from it all, and make him safe. But when he gets angry, you just freeze. You accept that it's going to happen, and you have no control. You feel invisible, and that feeling follows us all day. When we go to school, it has a really big effect on us.
I try to blend in, but I still think about all the fighting and hating. I wish I was able to tell my friends or the teacher, but I can't because I'm scared, and they don't know what's happening in my family. Is this normal?
I worry all the time. I worry about what might happen to Mum. Is she okay now? I worry that me or Sean might get hurt. And I worry about Mum getting upset if Dad does do something to us. It's too much responsibility, and it can be totally overwhelming. I'd like to be noticed more. Sometimes I might look okay, but really I'm hurting. And I show my teacher my mask, so I can disappear behind it.
The Gardaí come to our house sometimes. When that happens, I feel like they need to get him in trouble for being bad. I want the fighting and hating to stop.
I wish I could have done something to stop it. I wish he accepted that he needs help. I wish he could see that he is at fault. I wish he could put himself in our shoes. I try to keep Sean safe in our room. When we talk about the things we wish for, we wish that people would be kind to us, because we feel the pain too. We carry the feelings in our hearts.
We want people to listen to us and believe what we say.
We want people to tell us it's not our fault, and we want to be asked about what happens next, because that affects us a lot. Most of all, we want you to see us, hear us,
and keep us safe.
Okay. So the words of the children and young people in that animation were all unfiltered. The graphics and ideas came directly from the children and young people themselves. On a positive note, if I did have at our launch, we did have a playing or recording of children talking about how they found that process and what they thought of the animation itself, but after seeing it for the first time. Many of the children and young people felt that it accurately reflected that this is their day-to-day, and that adults will now see what this is really like for us. They were so proud being part of it and felt that it was a real opportunity for them to be heard and to be seen. Some children and people felt it was the first time that they felt heard and seen, and they felt validated. Some of the workers fed back that this was a very therapeutic process for the children to be involved in for the past 12 months. So when we talk about trauma and domestic violence, there's no doubt that the experience of domestic violence is taken with children from the time they get up in the morning to the time they go to bed and stays with them all day. And anything that we can do to support children and young people in their recovery, in their crisis, through early intervention and prevention. With high hopes for the next strategy in terms of it focus on children and domestic violence. And we'll see the final version of that next month. So it is very hard to see this animation, and we may well, how can we help children? Luckily for you, we asked the children as well, how can us professionals help you to recover? How can we hear you? How can we see you? And how can we keep you safe? So the children came back with incredible ideas and many, many ideas, and we have put them together into lovely infographic, and it's called, we set it in the context of children's rights. Again, we believe this is the right of children, that this is how they are responded to when they experience domestic violence and abuse. That is no longer, we should be considering a best practice, that we need to consider it as a child's right. So this is an infographic that we made for the children and young people made. Now, you see that? It's called Our Rights and Your Responsibilities, and there are 20 key messages for all of us to respond to children living with domestic violence and abuse. I'm just going to touch through some of them, but each one of them on their own. I'd love a bigger page and a bigger screen to really give them justice. The illustrator had a really hard challenge, but I think she done a lovely job. Again, the graphics in it were ideas for the children themselves as well. So a lot of things like see us, don't ignore us, we have lived with it too. Listen to us, believe everything we say. I know that's a real barrier for mothers and victims living with domestic violence and abuse, and they feel they're not believed. But it came back really strongly in a lot of feedback from the children and young people that they feel that they're not believed because of their age. Take time, always tell children it's not their fault. That sense of responsibility that is carried through with them all the time as well. And number 4 there, be kind because we feel the pain too. That really stands out. There's another one, where is it? The questions. Always ask us questions. Allow us to ask us questions, even if we have to ask them 10 times. Sometimes we feel when children ask us the same question, we have to give them a different answer because they didn't hear us the first time and they didn't understand the first time. Sometimes it's not, they just need that reassurance and that repetition. Keep us safe. Allow us our independence. That's that sense of agency that they want to be involved in decision making. Be patient. And number 9 there, always ask how we feel. Even if we look happy, sometimes we can look happy, but we are hurting. So this is available on the Barnardo's website in a PDF version. I know many places like it's free to download and easily accessible there for everybody as well. So all the resources that I spoke about today, this is the shared understanding that I mentioned at the very start, that we spent 2.5 years putting into to really understand children's experiences. And they are teaching us for the last 3 years about their own experience of domestic violence and abuse. So this is available. I'm happy to send on all these resources today. There's a background to it, and domestic violence and abuse is set in the lens of coercive control and takes a standpoint that all forms of violence are harmful. So the children's definition is also part of that. I haven't even gone into the children's definition here today, but you're more than welcome to download this as a resource, or I'll send it out after. And the shared understanding of service providers that came from the community practice that we're working with, and a subgroup which was led by Steph Holt as well. And then I went through also a period of consultation with services around Ireland, and it was peer reviewed last year. And there are some 10 important factors that shapes children's experiences of domestic violence and abuse. That's my presentation today. Apologies for my brain fog and croaky voice. I'm really, really honoured here to have an opportunity to present the words of children and young people.
I suppose what struck me most specifically from the 3 presentations is how no matter what we do, what mothers do and children do, the perpetrators are able to use it against them. So I just, I picked up on 3 very different things for yourself, Áine, when the children say, they see immediately the unfairness that he gets away with it. They don't get away with, not doing their homework or raising their voice or not doing their chores, but he gets away with it. And then these protections that are put in place for our border sovereignty, our visa rules and our migration rules, then the perpetrator can use those as another weapon. And so the legislation in Ireland is actually weaponized to bring more control over the woman and the children. And likewise, even after she escapes and gets away from him and is rebuilding her life as the children that you're working with, Áine, but as she does that, then access and custody is weaponized. This again is supposed to be a child-centered and the voice of the child, and to hear what the child wants and their rights as a child to have access to both parents, but then that too is weaponized as another weapon of abuse. So I think it's very interesting that, I suppose maybe that's where my head is, and might say more about me than your talks, but those 3 elements came out to me that no matter what women do, no matter what the state does, that perpetrators of abuse are able to weaponize it and turn it against women and children.
Just commenting on what you said just there, Siobhan, I think that came across very strongly when I was doing the small research that I did, and women actually were starting to just give up having any hope in the systems that existed. And they were just starting to turn towards trying to accept that this is going to be what they're going to have to live with, and trying to focus on how they can support their children from one access visit to the next, and the abuse and the terrorizing that happened in between, because it just felt like to them that no matter which way they turned, that the perpetrator was always going to hold a stronger hand, and trying to just be heard in that. And, like in Anya's report from Bernardo's, just trying to hear children's voices and women's voices. It's still so low, like it's like the radio down low compared to what you're hearing about men's rights and the right to access and pro-contact. I think there's a lot to happen yet around the rights of children, and really actually understanding what is good and right for them post separation, when a mother tries to actually leave it, that it's just facilitated to go on forever, well, till they're 18 anyway.
I think access is a big issue, and it's so upsetting to see like how women and children, they are not taking in consideration what they feel, and when they access that they are in danger, or the kids say they don't want to go to their father and they are just not listened to. Like, we deal with a case last year that a father kidnapped the kids and brought back to their countries, Pakistan, and they are gone. And because like you don't have nothing to do if they are not part of the
Hague Convention.
Yeah. And so now like the mom is here, like desperate to get the kid back, and what can you do? And this was brought to court so many times of her fear of him to kidnap the kid, and was just not heard. Like, and they give him access over and over again until really happened.